welcome back. The protests against President-elect Trump growing violent this weekend, inciting riots in America's streets all over this country. So can this destructive behavior really be called freedom of speech? Here to weigh in is Democrat turned Donald Trump supporter, Brunel Donald Shea, and Democratic strategist Brian Benjamin. Brian, is this just freedom of speech?
Well, I think most of it is. I think there are some folks who are doing the wrong thing, but the bottom line is words have consequences. And what happened is President Trump ran a historic campaign based on racism and misogyny, and what that has led to is a lot of people concerned. We have young people around this country, Latinos who are hearing from other kids, build the wall, Muslim women whose jobs are being ripped off their heads. I mean, so there is another side to this that makes people uncomfortable because rank and file Americans.
That is true.
Okay,
there are those
important
situations where people are spray painting buildings and saying and commenting against Latinos. That is happening.
Absolutely.
But freedom of speech, Brunel, going out and then burning down and looting and smashing buildings and damaging cars, that's not freedom of speech.
Absolutely not. It's not protected under the First Amendment. You have the right to peacefully protest and, say what you don't like about what's going on in your government. But when it turns to violence against your fellow American, when it turns to violence on the properties of your fellow Americans, that is not protected. That requires the intervention of our law enforcement. And in my opinion, because so many of them are young, the intervention of their parents. Also, too, Hillary Clinton, when she conceded, did not address her supporters, and I think that was not good judgment on her part, because she and the president were screaming about smooth transition. Would Donald Trump accept a smooth transition, or would he concede? And look at what's happening when she did not come in and talk to her people.
But let me say this. I think that Donald Trump should give a speech to the whole of America. Obviously, he ran a very divisive campaign. I think he should say to everyone, I will be everybody's president, and clarify, does he plan on building a wall? I'm hearing that now maybe he might not. So I think
he has called on social media.
He has already clarified.
Give me a break.
And he should come out and give a speech. We have an interview tonight on 60 Minutes where he addresses that.
He said it was very unfair on social media. He got on social media and said all these protesters are very unfair. He's a president.
Where is President Obama on this? He's still the president of the United States.
Exactly. He is the reigning president. It is his job to talk to Americans. No, he was quiet in Ferguson, quiet in Philly, quiet when a lot of these things broke out that were un-American as far as I'm concerned.
And
what I'll say is this.
Hold on a second. Brian,
go ahead.
There were a lot of people who didn't vote. We saw numbers significantly down in Philadelphia where we're seeing these riots. Portland, Michigan, Detroit.
That's true.
These people that are out there organized suddenly, spontaneously.
Being paid.
Did they vote? Why didn't they vote? Couldn't they have done this before Election Day?
I believe a lot of them did vote. The bottom line was there wasn't enough votes. I mean, look, Donald Trump won the election fair and square. I don't think anyone's arguing that.
Thank you.
But
God bless your lips.
People are making the case that the way he won was inappropriate, and there's consequences to his words. And that's why people are protesting.
What I would say is this. Donald Trump got the white vote. He got black votes. He got Hispanic votes. He got Chinese votes. He got Arab votes. He got all kinds of votes. People of all races and nationalities, creeds.
I'm
sorry, excuse me, sir.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I apologize. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Don't forget who won the popular vote. Go ahead.
He appealed to all Americans. So this nonsense about racists, and I'm not a racist. I'm not a xenophobe. I'm not a
we turn the page? We've got 30 seconds left. Can we solve America's ills here? How do we turn the page?
The president-elect comes out and says publicly that he is going to protect the rights of all Americans, and that Muslims should not be scared, Latinos should not be scared, and that he is going to be a president for this entire country.
Brunel, is that the answer?
What I would say is this.
Needs to come out and say this?
What I would say is this.
Oh, boy.
No, the president of the United States, who is still living on our tax dollars, should address the nation, calm down everything. Not only that, Hillary Clinton also has a duty, as these are her supporters, to come out and let them know, hey, he won fair and square. Let's, heal. Let's not be divided. And that's the way it should go. That's their job.
We'll leave it up to, you guys had a great debate this morning, Brunel and Brian. We appreciate it. I want to hear from our viewers this morning. Thank you. Let us know.
God bless you and God bless America.
Go to our Facebook page this morning, FF Weekend, and let us know who should come out. Does President Obama need to? Does President-elect Trump? Does Hillary Clinton? Or all three of them? Sort of a joint summit to calm these protests. All right, coming up here on the show, are Democrats finally ready to give Nancy Pelosi the boot? The stunning news about the future of the former speaker. And the president-elect vowed to get rid of tough regulations hurting small businesses. Our panel of business owners here to get specific. That's next.
Repealing and replacing the disaster known as Obamacare.
Cancel every illegal Obama executive order.
We're going to have the biggest tax cut since Ronald Reagan.
That's right. President-elect Trump pledging to undo tough and onerous business regulations imposed under the Obama administration. So what changes are small business owners hoping for? It's a big question. Let's ask them. Barry Sloan is the president and CEO of New Tech Business Services. Stephanie Abrams-Carton is the co-founder of SocialFly. And Jerry Lynch is a certified financial planner and founder of JFL Total Wealth Management. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Jerry, I'll go to you first. I mean, what, as a small business owner, what regulations are most onerous are you hoping to get rid of?
Obamacare. My health insurance rates went up over 50%. We have an HSA plan, which basically means we get no money back from the insurance company. A 50% increase could put a lot of businesses out of business.
Sure.
You know, there's got to be something that makes the medical costs a little bit more controllable and just allows companies to grow without, you know, the costs associated with the medical program.
So, Stephanie, Obamacare is a big one across the board.
Absolutely.
What else is preventing businesses from flourishing the way they should?
So I would say the current tax rate, we are definitely optimistic and hoping that it will be decreased to the 15%. For our business, it will definitely help us save more money, be able to hire more people, create more jobs, and invest in new technology. So definitely decreasing that tax rate, we're really looking forward to that.
When you keep more of your own money, you can do the things you want to do, including pay your people more and hire more.
Exactly. We'd love to be able to do that.
Indeed. Barry, what are your thoughts as a small business owner?
Well, President-elect Trump clearly is connected with small business owners. They can empathize with him being an entrepreneur. Regulation like from Dodd-Frank, which was created during the first term of Obama, which really put a tremendous onus on the banking industry to provide funds to small businesses and individuals, and created the Consumer Financial Protection Board.
Yeah.
It's likely that gets eliminated, particularly since the federal...
You think it'll get eliminated, or...?
Well, the Federal Appeals Court just came out and basically said the power of the chair was too powerful and was unconstitutional. So I think that's a major issue, particularly to free up the banking industry. Also, energy policy, I think he's going to clear up federal lands for exploration and drilling, which will create a very vibrant gas and oil energy exploration in the United States.
And am I right that on the energy industry side, a lot of that are executive orders that can be undone fairly quickly?
Very easily, yes.
Interesting. So a lot can change quite quickly. Jerry, one of the concerns of so many voters was jobs fleeing overseas. The opportunities just aren't there.
Yeah.
What can he do or will he do on the regulation side or elsewhere to make sure jobs stay here?
I think the first thing is the corporate tax rate. Our federal tax rate goes up as high as 38%. We're the third highest taxed nation, okay? Ireland's 12th. Now, if I'm a business and I have a successful business, why would I want to keep my company in the United States? Why don't I move it over to Ireland or some of these other countries where the regulations are better and the tax rate is a third of what it is right now? Now, I was saying before to Barry, I mean, basically, we don't have to have the lowest tax rate in the world, but if you're being chased by a lion, you don't have to be the fastest, you just can't be the slowest, and right now we're the slowest.
That's a good way to put it. What are your employees hearing? The rank and file, what do they want? And very briefly.
In terms of...
Yeah, regulations. What's onerous for them, pinching their paychecks the most?
So I think a lot of employees in general don't understand that what benefits are going to come from the reduced tax rate. So I think it's important for business owners to share this information and explain to their employees what can actually happen with a reduced tax rate. I think a lot of people in general are just upset at the outcome of the election, but they're not understanding the benefits that can come from the reduced tax rate for employees.
Yeah, very much so. Barry, very quickly, what's the most important thing you should do?
Well, I think he really needs to reduce government regulation significantly across the board. The ACA, Dodd-Frank, energy policy, and the tax rate is extremely important to get rid of the Obamacare tax on paychecks.
These are the folks right here that create the jobs that Americans need. And when you hear overwhelmingly it's the regulations that are stifling it, I think Donald Trump's heard that message. We'll see if Washington does here coming up. Barry Sloan, Jerry Lynch, and Stephanie Abrams-Carton. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
You got it. All right, the New York Times slammed President-elect Donald Trump every chance they could, as we saw during the campaign. Now, this morning, they have a slightly new message for him. They're saying we're kind of sorry. We're kind of sorry. Is it too little, too late? We'll talk about it. Plus, Ted Cruz, maybe the next Supreme Court justice. Is that really a possibility? The list of potential nominees coming up. Stick around. Well, welcome back. New York Times publisher Arthur Sulzberger Jr. issuing an unprecedented, apology, writing in a letter to subscribers, and we quote, "As we reflect on this week's momentous result and the months of reporting and polling that preceded it, we aim to rededicate, is a key word, ourselves to the fundamental mission of the Times journalism. We cannot deliver the independent, original journalism for which we are known without the loyalty of our subscribers."
Yeah, but after turning a blind eye to the reality of the election, is this mea culpa too little, too late?
Well, joining us now to weigh in from the Media Research Center is Richard Noyes. Nice to see you this morning, Rich. And, I have to say, we posted this earlier, and a lot of people, our viewers this morning, saying that's not an apology. It's just basically saying, well, we're just going to, try harder.
Yeah, you got to admit what you've done wrong if you're going to try to get it right in the future. And I think what the Times did wrong was not just predicting the election wrong, but they tried to influence the election every step of the way with hit piece after hit piece on Donald Trump. And that was missing the mood of the voters, but it was also trying to tamper with the election.
Yeah, the big takeaway from this election was the American people giving the middle finger to the establishment, to the media elite, as you could call the New York Times. And it seems like they've had an attitude, right? The New York Times acting as if they knew better than the American people. They knew what was going to happen, and much to their surprise, they were wrong.
Right. I think they decided on a narrative early on in this election that Donald Trump was unfit, unworthy to be president. Hillary Clinton was the only choice. So all of their coverage was designed to prove their prejudice about this election. When they would interview Trump people out, Trump supporters at these rallies, it was to show them being kooky people, as opposed to really trying to figure out what was going on, what was motivating them, what were the economic issues that had been unaddressed in the last 8 years that would make them go this way. And I think, they just choosing the conclusion first and then reporting to fill in the gaps is biased reporting, and it made them really miss the political story of the decade.
Very much so, and it doesn't count as an apology if in that same letter you say, we thought we were fair throughout the entire election. But you know what they suffer from is their bottom line. They're a business, they've got to make money, and they're not making it. They've been hearing from their readers. Here's a letter from a New York Times reader, Nick Crawford from Plymouth, Michigan. He wrote, "Perhaps the election result would not be such a surprise if your reporting had acknowledged what ordinary Americans care about, rather than pushing the limited agenda of your editors. Please come down from your New York City skyscraper and join the rest of us." I think Nick speaks for a lot of people.
I think he does, and I think it's also not just the New York Times. There's ABC, CBS, NBC. A lot of these liberal New York-based media outlets were blindsided by this election. They tried to influence it in a way to help Hillary Clinton, and they're all losers in this election.
Yeah, well, Tuesday was a huge wake-up call.
Sure
and if it wasn't, then it needs to be.
We'll see if it will be, really. It's a challenge. You can't just turn off the progressive switch when you've got an agenda. We'll see how they do it.
If it was too little too late. All right, good to see you this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
Thanks.
All right, coming up, Ted Cruz, the next Supreme Court justice. Is that a real possibility? We're going to look at some of the potential nominees.
That's right. Plus, Oprah's got a message for these angry liberal protesters, maybe rioters. She says, chill out.
Welcome back. And a surprising suggestion from Senator Lindsey Graham for who should fill the vacant Supreme Court seat. Fellow Senator Ted Cruz saying, quote, "There is no stronger constitutional conservative." Though President-elect Trump's list of potential nominees contains some unusual choices, is Cruz really a possibility? Ryan Gerdusky from Red Alert Politics is here to break down some of Mr. Trump's possible picks. Good morning, Ryan. Good to see you. Let's start with Senator Ted Cruz, because that was a name you did not see coming on the list, especially from Senator Lindsey Graham. There is no love lost between these two. What is going on?
Yeah, they're not exactly friends, and I think that...
Not exactly.
Yeah, not exactly. He compared him being poisoned and said if he was shot, no one could evict him. The thing is that I think that Senator Lindsey Graham really would like the Senate to change and become more establishment-oriented. So getting Ted Cruz out of the Senate would be great. It would be Ruth Bader Ginsburg's problem instead of Lindsey Graham's problem. And it would prevent him from ever running for president ever again. And Ted Cruz very much has presidential ambitions into the future. So this would be a great win-win for him, and it would make, he'd probably get a more establishment senator out of Texas. So I think it's more benefiting Lindsey Graham than benefiting Ted Cruz, or maybe, or Donald Trump's presidency.
I think Mr. Trump would ever look at that seriously, Senator Ted Cruz on the Supreme Court?
Does Ted Cruz really want it? Does Ted Cruz want to be president one day, or does Ted Cruz want to be Supreme Court justice? I think Ted Cruz really wants to be president one day. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him run in 2024 or something.
Yeah, I would not be surprised either. Okay, let's look at some of the more realistic options.
Yeah.
Senator Mike Lee, who is very close to Senator Cruz, elected in 2010 from my home state of Utah. This is a job that he's always dreamed of having. He would certainly do it if asked.
Well, Mike Lee's biggest competition may be his brother Thomas Lee. Thomas Lee is also on the short list, and the family produces constitutionalists, everyone in the family. So it would be a great choice, either one of them, and I think Thomas Lee may have a pick. Listen, the LDS community was not the biggest supporter of Donald Trump. It would be a huge win for them to have a Supreme Court justice, the first Mormon Supreme Court justice. I think that Donald Trump probably will pick one of the two in the very near future, either Thomas or Senator Mike Lee.
What about Justice Don Willett?
Justice Don Willett famously did not like Donald Trump, criticized him constantly on Twitter, but constitutionalists love him. The Federalist Society, those people love Don Willett, rather, and I think that he's definitely probably up on the totem pole as well. He's young. I think he's still in his late 40s or early 50s, and he'd be there for a very long time. It would definitely help him change the composition of the court in the decades to come.
It seems like Mr. Trump is, at least initially, is willing to put politics aside to do what might be the best for the country.
Yeah, and also to show the conservative movement, look, I'm not a Hillary plant, obviously. I'm really not a liberal. I'm going to give you guys what you want, especially when it comes to the Supreme Court. I'm going to protect the Second Amendment. I'm going to protect a lot of values we care about, unlimited government, and I'm going to make sure we have the replacement for Antonin Scalia and maybe the replacement for...
Right, you could have two on there.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Breyer, Kennedy. They're all over or about 80 years old. So, yeah, there's plenty of possibilities, so I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some of these names come up.
And for a lot of voters, it ultimately came down to the Supreme Court because, as you've been saying, this is a lifelong appointment.
Yeah, evangelicals came out to the highest portion they'd ever had before. They came out heavy for a man who had 3 marriages, who famously said that he didn't have a conversation with God that much. But they cared about the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court was going to be their future, and I think that that's what. And he's going to show them, listen, I'm on your side. I'm going to give you what you want because you like to be president.
Well, then they also have to get through the Senate, right? They have to get through Congress.
Yeah, but
they don't have the 60% threshold.
Well, you need for the Supreme Court, you don't need 60 and 51, but I think they're going to have the 51 because they have 52 Republicans right now. So I think that they'll be okay. I think no matter what, and plus they'll have Joe Manchin. You'll have a handful of Democrats supporting him.
We'll see some interesting options on the table. Ryan, good to see you this morning.
You too.
All right, coming up, he predicted the Trump shocker and the Brexit shocker. Now, Nigel Farage is ready to help Britain work with President-elect Trump, the leader of the UK Independence Party. He is here and he is live. Stick with us. Good morning to you. It is Sunday, November 13th. I'm Abby Huntsman. And breaking right now, the decision is imminent. President-elect Donald Trump planning to announce who he's going to appoint to Chief of Staff. And this is as the first foreign policy meetings are already underway. The UK's Nigel Farage, fresh off his trip from the Trump Tower. He is here and he's going to join us live.
That'll be interesting. And outraged college liberals, shocking, exercising their right to smash windows, apparently, and set things on fire because they don't like Donald Trump. It's not protesting when you do that. It's rioting. And the president-elect, not their only target. Now they want Oprah's head, too. And we're not kidding. Apparently Oprah is their target also.
And should President Obama pardon Hillary Clinton? The very, very real question being raised at the White House. Does she deserve a free pass? That was asked at the press corps. Fox and Friends, Hour 4 starts right now. We have a jam-packed hour for you here in our 9 o'clock hour. That is a picture of Donald Trump and Nigel Farage. Of course, he spearheaded the Brexit movement. He was the one that accurately predicted a Trump victory.
That was from yesterday at the Trump Tower.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great picture. It's two movements that coming together that have the same implications of the people. He's going to be on with us this hour, as is the member of the Trump transition team, Representative Chris Collins. He's going to give us insight into who they're picking and why and how they're going about the process.
Yeah, and Katie Fang as well, talking about should Hillary Clinton be pardoned by President Barack Obama, something we were talking about yesterday. Could this actually be a real thing. So we've got a big last hour to go here on Fox and
We
Friends.
go big and go home in the fourth hour.
And according to my list here, Maria Bartiromo is also going to be here because the markets, they've been up this week. We're going to see what a Trump presidency looks like for your 401k and other things.
Yeah, we love when she joins the couch as well. But we do start with, of course, politics and this new transition team and what is it going to look like. President-elect Donald Trump's White House cabinet starting to take shape this morning. His pick for chief of staff, it could come at any moment.
Garrett Tenney is live in Washington, D.C. with who may be on that short list. Good morning, Garrett.
Hey, good morning, y'all. 4,000 jobs to fill in this next administration, so this transition team has its plate full. First up, it appears, will be President-elect Trump's chief of staff, and right now we're told 2 men are being considered for the job. Former Trump campaign CEO Steve Bannon and RNC chairman Reince Priebus. Bannon, who is an executive of Breitbart News, embodies the outsider anti-establishment mentality that Trump campaigned on. While Priebus, he has an extensive knowledge of D.C. and very close relationships with many GOP lawmakers. One of the main roles for the chief of staff is to serve as a bridge between the White House and Capitol Hill and other agencies to advance the president's agenda, which would seem to make Priebus an ideal candidate. Yesterday at Trump Tower, Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway, she confirmed that he's a strong possibility.
I think Chairman Priebus has expressed an interest in the position. There are several people being considered, and it's Mr. Trump's decision ultimately.
Now look for Kellyanne Conway to play a large role in the Trump administration as well. She's received a lot of credit for turning the Trump campaign around and is being considered for several positions, including communications director, White House press secretary, and as a senior advisor.
I think she'll be probably wherever she wants to be. I think the president-elect very much respects her counsel and her opinion, not just as a campaign spokesperson, but I think as a sounding board and someone who has a lot of ideas on how to implement this vision.
A few other Trump allies who are on the short list for his cabinet include former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani as Attorney General, Senator Jeff Sessions, who serves on the Senate Committee on Armed Forces as Secretary of Defense, and we're told former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski is being considered for several senior advisor roles as well. Up first, though, is Mr. Trump's chief of staff, and yesterday we were told that announcement is, quote, imminent. Pete Abbey-Clayton?
You got it, lots of speculation.
Any moment. Yeah, as Chris Wallace said this morning, the chief of staff is arguably the most important role that he's going to play.
Well, and he's going to get a chance to ask Kellyanne Conway himself on Fox News Sunday today. So maybe we'll get some answers soon.
Meanwhile, we had a lot of people emailing us this morning, their thoughts on who they'd like to see as the chief of staff. Tammy emailed it. I would love to see Mr. Mike Huckabee have a role in President Trump's cabinet. I think he would make a good Secretary of State.
And Anthony wrote to us on Facebook saying, I think Donald Trump should appoint Pete Hegseth as Secretary of the VA.
There you go.
He was in the military, is on the top of what is going on. Look at that, Pete.
You planted that, didn't you? Yes, I got it. And Robbie tweeted, Reince Priebus for chief of staff. By the way, Pete, put 2 artificial sweeteners with a packet of Swiss Miss in my coffee. My strong black coffee.
You know what? I do that.
Artificial sweeteners and Swiss Miss?
I don't do, no, but I do put Swiss Miss in my coffee.
You do.
It's really good. It adds a little bit of some chocolate to it. And who doesn't love chocolate?
Just whatever you want to put in.
Nigel Farage right now is like probably rolling his eyes.
He's like, why did I commit to the show?
Yeah, he's like, oh my gosh, just have some tea in the morning. He's going to be joining us in a short time here. But meanwhile, he is the guy, of course, who accurately predicted everything that was going to unfold with Brexit. He was really the spearheading behind the Brexit in the UK. And he was also predicting Trump's massive victory in the United States.
A lot of people saying that he was crazy. We did a few segments on Fox and Friends comparing what could happen to Brexit. And they were, the mainstream media and the pundits out there saying, how can you even make that comparison? That's never going to happen here.
Well, and Nigel Farage, no one thought it was going to happen in the UK either. He was a leader of a minor party. He was a representative to Brussels, telling Brussels, we're going to leave. You wait, we're going to leave. Years later, they did. They voted. No one expected it. He dropped out of government and has been commentating about it and advising Donald Trump in real time, saying what happened in the UK is possible in the United States because the people are fed up with the elites in a distant capital running their lives. So the convergence was complete yesterday when they met at Trump Tower.
They finally met together. And Kellyanne Conway came out and she made a statement about their meeting. Here's what she said.
What was the discussion like with Nigel Farage and Mr. Trump?
Very productive. I think they enjoy each other's company, and they actually had an opportunity to talk about freedom and winning and what this all means for the world.
I love
so
it.
it's hard.
They said they had the opportunity to talk about freedom and winning, and what it all means for the world.
And how everyone else got it so wrong.
No, I just want to have a conversation where the only thing I talk about is freedom and winning. Well, it's true, right?
Well, if you're a Vikings fan, it's probably going to be hard.
Why you got to go there?
So anyway, Nigel Farage is going to be joining us at 9:20 here
Can't
on
wait.
the show.
We should ask him what he puts in his coffee.
Oh, we will. But I mean, incredibly smart tea probably.
He doesn't drink coffee. He's a
refined man. We're just the rabble Americans.
Meanwhile, there's been more unrest overnight, and they're not upset about Pete's coffee. They are upset, allegedly, about the future of this country and Donald Trump taking the Oval Office. And there's been protests the fourth night now, smashing businesses, smashing cars, taking to the streets all over the country, and they've expanded, kind of started out in Portland and moved. Now you can really see it all over the country.
Yeah, they might as well be protesting. They're better off protesting your coffee, because that you could potentially change. What they're protesting is Mr. Trump winning the presidency, and that is something that is going to happen whether they like it or not. You could see all the cities there on this map where protests have broken out, and we're hearing threats of protests even come Inauguration Day, which is not until January 20th. And you have some big names behind this, promoting this. George Soros is one of them. Yeah. Reverend Al Sharpton, also Michael Moore, who was spotted at Trump Tower yesterday, saying that he is pushing these along and fighting for them.
Typical left-wing organizations driving this, but hardcore communist, socialist type groups, many of them anti-American. I will say, though, these aren't protest is not a fair word in a lot of these places. These are riots. These are riots happening in the streets where cops are being attacked, things are being set on fire, traffic is being blocked, laws are being broken. It's lawlessness. And then you watch Barack Obama go to the golf course and not call for calm, not call for legitimacy for Donald Trump more than the one time that he did. There's a lot more that our leaders could do.
Yeah, and you made a good point on that yesterday, Pete. You said it would be so powerful if we had President Barack Obama and President-elect Donald Trump come together and make a statement to the American people.
Well, wait a second.
Saying this is a time to come together.
Maybe we don't need any of them. Maybe we don't need Trump. Maybe we don't need Obama. Maybe we don't need Clinton. Maybe all we need
I see where you're going, Clayton.
Oprah Winfrey.
Oh, I didn't see Oprah coming.
Right. Here's Oprah. Listen. Well, because of that, she's getting some hate mail.
Yeah, because you remember she was a big supporter of President Barack Obama, also a supporter of Hillary Clinton. But she's saying, I think, something that we all need to hear this morning, and something that that we heard from other guests this morning. Let's just all take a moment.
Well, take a look at social media, because the trolls are out on social media. Take a look at this. Oprah, you can take a deep breath and hold it while the rest of us literally fight for our lives right now.
Oh my gosh, the hyperbole there is ridiculous. Another tweet says, Oprah, what the bleep? This is not one of my favorite things. She has the favorite things on her show.
And that's Patton Oswalt, a famous actor.
Yeah, and here's another one. I will never forget that you did this, Oprah. Awful.
How dare you?
This one, though, this one's my favorite.
Yeah. Raven tweets this, Oprah, dead to me.
Literally, think about this. The first tweet says, we're fighting for our lives. And I said it before and I'll say it again. No, there are men in uniform in Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria fighting for your life and for our freedom. And you're going to look Oprah Winfrey in the eye and say, I'm fighting for my life because Donald Trump got elected to president. The lack of perspective in this country is unreal.
When all she's saying is, let's come together, guys. This is time for some healing.
You got to give her credit. It was a calming message, right? That she was heartened by the peaceful transition of power in this country. What do you think about this? You can go to our Facebook page this morning, FF Weekend. We've got a great thread of comments happening that are on our Facebook page.
You can call it a great thread.
Yeah, social media, there's so many great things to come from that, but just a lot of terrible things, a lot of hateful speech on social media today. We do have some other headlines to get to this morning. Starting with an election alert. The votes in Michigan, they have now all been tallied. President-elect Donald Trump finishing on top there. Mr. Trump leading the state with 47.6% of the vote. Hillary Clinton right behind him with 47.3%. And once officially called, the state will propel President-elect Trump to 306 electoral votes in all. And a major backup headed to the United States southern border to stomp out a surge of illegals. 150 extra Border Patrol and custom agents will be temporarily reassigned to the Rio Grande Valley. An uncontrollable amount of people seeking refuge have been caught trying to cross the border there, and the move comes as fears swell over President-elect Donald Trump's campaign promise to strengthen the border. And then there's this. We've heard Hillary Clinton's public stance on her embarrassing election loss, but in private she says it is all James Comey's fault. On a call with top campaign donors, Clinton says the FBI director's letters to Congress were the difference makers. The first reopened her email probe 11 days before the election, and the second closed it with just 2 days to go. She says without them, she had this election in the bag.
Oh, so it's somebody else's fault.
You know what, though, whenever you lose something, you're very quick to point blame at everyone else but yourself.
Well,
it's
it's
the
interesting
easiest
to know
thing to do.
they were wildly wrong on all of their internal polling. They didn't know that Western Pennsylvania was going to Trump. They didn't know that Michigan was moving in that direction. So how can they then say that the Comey letter was the thing that moved the needle for them? All their internal polling was wrong to begin with.
They were also wrong on, I don't know, a private email server and lying about it. Clinton Foundation, Benghazi. Doesn't help.
Much more to come on the show. Next, an exclusive look inside the Trump transition team and the decisions they might make today. One of its newest members, Congressman Chris Collins, joins us next.
There he is.
And do you remember this guy? You might be trying to forget him, but remember him. Disgraced Attorney General Eric Holder is back with a new pet project. It may be unconstitutional, but of course that hasn't stopped him before. Welcome back. The day after President-elect Trump announced his transition team, well, he put them to work.
Yeah. So what kind of decisions can we expect from them?
Now let's ask one of the newly announced members of the Presidential Transition Executive Committee, who was one of the first members of the House to endorse Mr. Trump. That's New York Congressman Chris Collins. Congressman, nice to see you on the show this morning. Welcome.
Oh, good morning.
All right,
nice
so
to be with you.
There's a lot of work going on right now. A lot of other people are slowing down for the holidays, but you guys are ramping things up. What kind of announcements can we expect over the next few days?
Well, as you did hear, the Chief of Staff is going to be announced today, and I think after that what makes a lot of sense is there's 15 cabinet-level positions that need to be filled and then thousands of jobs underneath those, but it's only fair at the end of the day to make sure that the folks at the cabinet level are going to have input in those people underneath them. So while people have already been working for many, many weeks, with names, going through resumes, and that's a lot of behind-the-scenes work. And certainly our job is going to be at some point to vet, some final decisions, make recommendations, and clearly President Trump's going to have the final say, and his chief of staff, which was so critical to be put in place, also very critical in that decision making. So there's a lot of moving parts here. In fact, the first time we'll be able to get together in D.C. is tomorrow.
Okay.
So we're all looking forward to that, and I think the country is as well, because these first few picks are really going to send a message to America that Donald Trump is uniting our nation. He's focused on growth, 4% GDP growth. I think his priorities will be evident when we see these top-level picks.
Congressman, just a quick clarification. We've heard eminent for the Chief of Staff, but you're saying we'll hear an announcement today.
Well, I would use the word eminent as well, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's today.
Okay.
And one thing that we've seen from the names mentioned, that there may be more, is just how much Mr. Trump values loyalty and keeping people around him that have been with him from the very beginning of announcing his presidency. You're one of those people who's been with him for a long time. You're in the Congress now. Would you take a position there, or do you feel like you can get more done where you are?
No, I did speak with Mr. President-elect Trump the next day after the election. I did tell him, in my case, I want to stay in Congress. There may be a role I can play between the administration and Congress, but I serve on Energy and Commerce, the #1 committee. I'm on the Health Subcommittee, where we're going to have to replace Obamacare. So I was very clear, very happy to have been the first member to endorse him and stick with him for 8.5 months. But at this point, I can serve best in
Well, and
Congress.
what advice do you have for him then in negotiating deals with Congress? Because that has seemed to be a challenge for presidents to be able to get things done with Congress. What advice do you have for Mr. Trump as he starts to do that?
Well, he's already started in picking Mike Pence, former Congressman Mike Pence, as vice president, who has an excellent relationship with Speaker Ryan. And as we move this legislative agenda, I believe what you're going to see in this administration is Vice President Pence taking the major role in getting the legislative agenda through. But let's remember, we have a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and a Republican president. So we're just ready to ramp up, and we've been passing bills for 8 years that died in Harry Reid's desk or were vetoed by the president. So it's not like we're starting fresh. We know how we're going to make this a smaller, less intrusive government to get the job engine rolling, get us back up to 4% GDP. These bills are sitting there. We'll tweak them, but it's not like we're starting with zero.
All right. Congressman Chris Collins, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Yes, good to be with you all.
Coming up on the show, remember the mom who said she just happened to bump into Hillary Clinton in the woods? Critics say that picture was staged, so was it?
The president-elect's first foreign policy meetings are already underway. The UK's Nigel Farage just met with Mr. Trump. He will join us live. There he is.
Here it comes.
The UK Independence Party to a victory during Brexit.
Yeah, but then he supported U.S. President-elect Donald Trump in his quest for the White House.
That's right. And after meeting with Mr. Trump just yesterday, President-elect Trump, how does Nigel Farage compare their victories? And what does he think of current U.S.-UK relations going forward? The leader of the UKIP party joins us now. Thanks for being here, Nigel Farage. You have been all over the news. I asked you this before. What's it like to be on cloud nine forever? I mean, with Brexit and this, what's it been like for you?
I mean, 2016, it's the year of political revolution. I mean, I've been dreaming of this for a couple of decades because I've always known that whatever our political class and their friends in the media and the big businesses, whatever they do and say and want, is not the same as what ordinary, hard-working taxpayers want. And what you've seen this year is just ordinary, decent people, the little people who've said, we've had enough, we want change.
Now, you predicted Brexit, and you told Parliament it was going to happen. They laughed at you. You predicted that Donald Trump would win. They laughed at you. What did you see that other people didn't see?
It's all to do with opinion polls. They're wrong. Why are they wrong? Because they don't measure the non-voter. You know, the man or woman who've never voted in their life who decides, you know what, I'm going to go out and vote for Trump. They can't measure these people. And if they ring them up and say, look, would you, join our list? They're probably going to get, verbal down the phone before it's slammed down. Secondly, because of the way society's evolved, because of the domination of the liberal left media, people are now nervous about expressing conservative views. So they'll say one thing to a pollster and do another thing when it comes to the polling booth. That was one big reason. The other reason was, what Trump was offering, just like Brexit, was a kind of once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to change a system that has not been benefiting ordinary people.
That's so right. The invisible voter, people really underestimated that. You met with Mr. Trump yesterday at Trump Tower, post-winning this election. What was that conversation like?
He was thoughtful, reflective. I mean, just think, Hillary too, just think what they've been through. I mean, this has been the most astonishing, vicious election campaign. I mean, that second debate in St. Louis, it was almost hard to watch. I mean, it was really, really down there, wasn't it? Hard and vicious. But I think I tell you what, for a man of 70, he's unbelievable. I mean, those last few days of the campaign, he was doing 6 rallies. Now, I know from Brexit, what it's like to be out there. So, I mean, his stamina's extraordinary, and believe me, he's not been idling for the last couple of days. He was talking about various ideas that he's got, and he is desperate to help ordinary Americans.
You think he's surprised that it went his way?
When you're leading something like that, you're so full on that at the moment the polls close, you sort of think to yourself, what's going to happen? Your confidence almost goes. It happened to me on Brexit. Look, I just think he's thrilled, and when you look at the number of electoral college votes he got, actually, it was a landslide.
And some people in America, however, are not thrilled. We're seeing protests.
Yes.
Did you see that after Brexit, and what do you make of these protests to an election result?
We've seen protests led by people like Bob Geldof and various rock stars who I haven't got much time for. And yeah, they've been out protesting. Now, I think, looking at the people outside Trump Tower yesterday, I think they're the same people.
Same people. Professional protesters.
That were at the Brexit protest.
I think they were flown over.
Let's talk about Brexit. There's a lot of concern, international markets. We've been hearing trouble in China, then buying back their own stock. Then everyone's pointing to the European Union and Britain's exit in Brexit. It's going to cause international turmoil. How do you decouple the UK from the European Union cleanly where it doesn't rattle the world?
I've just never heard so much rubbish in all my life. We're looking through the wrong end of the telescope. The idea that the European Union is good for economics is nonsense. It's the most over-regulated part of the world. It's got the highest unemployment rates, the lowest growth rates, the maddest energy policy. And look, nowhere in history have you had to be in a political union to buy and sell motor cars from each other. The whole thing is based on a false premise, and these arguments that we get, and we're getting them from Goldman Sachs, and we're getting them from JP Morgan. And why? Because the European Union allows mega businesses to effectively write their own rules for the industry, which puts out of business small and medium-sized competitors and gives the customer worse value for money. And by the way, I've helped to get Britain out of the European Union. I now want to get Europe out of the European Union. No, I mean it. We don't need that flag or anthem and all those old men telling us what to do.
You said that 17 years ago that the UK didn't believe it had happened. Who knows? That could be the future as well. What would you say the future is of U.S.-UK relations? Such a critical alliance.
Yeah, that's
what's
important.
possible going forward?
Absolutely. And, you know, when you think just 2 days ago was Veterans Day, and you think of the triumphs and tragedies that we have shared as a nation in the course of the last 100 years to give liberty and freedom, you know, to much of Europe and much of the world, it's very regrettable that Obama took an incredibly negative view about the United Kingdom. He was happy to see us sort of parcelled up and chucked into this new European state. Believe me, Donald Trump and the team around him, they get what we've done together in the past, and they want us to have a good relationship in the future. Obama came to Britain in the referendum and told us that we'd be at the back of the line. Actually, I mean, I want to thank President Obama because he made the people so angry. He probably added 2% to our vote, you know. But no, I mean, what Team Trump have made clear is that we'd be at the front of the line, that we need to have. I mean, you've got massive investments in the UK, we've got massive investments here. So in terms of trade, I'm optimistic.
And NATO too, right?
Well, you see, the thing about NATO is that Trump has been heavily criticised for calling into question the financial contributions that some people are making. And the truth is, America is still picking up too much of the bill. He's right about that. The other thing about NATO is, you know, we know what it was formed for nearly 70 years ago.
Right.
It was there, you know, against the Warsaw Pact. Ever since the Berlin Wall came down, we haven't redefined what NATO's for.
You guys went through a divisive time recently, obviously with Brexit. Yeah. And I traveled to Scotland just after all of that. And it seemed like there was harmony. It didn't seem like there was all this dissent. What advice do you have for America right now? I mean, Scotland, because by the way, Scotland didn't vote for it. So, you know, here you have...
I'll tell you the truth. There's a very large percentage of people who voted for remaining in the European Union who say, do you know what? We're Democrats. We lost that. Let's accept it. Let's get on with it. The only people moaning are the full-time professional student protesters, rather like the lot we saw here. Right. By the way, none of them voted because they can't get out of bed, and yet they're happy to go and protest. You know, I mean,
that's true.
Of course, it's true. Yeah. And generally, people in the UK are accepting the result. There are some who'll go on protesting. There are some who'll go on moaning. But I have absolutely no doubt we are getting back our independence.
And what did you say? You were laughed at for a long time when Brexit went. What did you say in your speech?
I went to the European Parliament for the first speech after Brexit, and I got up to speak, and about 400 of them started booing and jeering, as they do. I'm like the sort of pantomime villain, you know. And I said, when I came here 17 years ago, I said to you I was going to take Britain out of the European Union. Well, I said, you laughed at me. But you're not laughing now.
You're not laughing now. That's a great speech. The left here in America, not laughing now either. We love having you here, Matt.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
With us.
Pleasure. Man of history, no doubt.
All right, we'll be right back after this. Welcome back. That was a really interesting segment with Daniel Farage. Just
by the way, the new book out describes all of this. You got to pick it up. It's called The Bad Boys of Brexit.
What an awesome title, too.
Really awesome. Front and center. So anyway, let's talk about the New York Times, because
speaking of getting it all wrong,
you never thought that you would see a snowball's chance having this morning what has happened, which is the New York Times has sort of released an apology. I guess you could call it an apology for the way that they covered the election. They want to rededicate, they say, the paper to fair reporting.
Rededicate, like a rededication ceremony.
Well, here's what they're saying. They say, as we reflect on this week's momentous result and the months of reporting and polling that preceded it, we aim to rededicate, which is a key word here, ourselves to the fundamental mission of Times journalism, that is to report America and the world honestly and understand and reflect all political perspectives and life experiences in the stories that we bring to you.
And later on in the letter, they go on to say, though, we feel like we covered it very fairly, the election. And if you look at I mean, they did in the letter. So it's not really an apologize. If you know,
then why are they redirecting their?
I think they're covering their rear end because their viewers have said you were totally biased and we're not buying your paper.
It's basically like apologizing by saying, I'm sorry that you felt that way. Yes. Right? That's always a good apology.
Spouses really love
my husband never does that to me. You know?
I'm sorry that you were upset. Are you not apologizing? Yeah, it's a tiff. So anyway, Linda writes this on Facebook. She says, New York Times will never recover from this. Americans were smart enough to disregard their slanted journalism. Regaining trust is not that simple.
That's right. Jan on Facebook writes, they called us aging and raging white evangelicals. New York Times is so out of touch with the rest of the country. Who is doing the raging? Not Trump's people.
No, you know what? This election was really a win for the American people, regardless of how you feel about Mr. Trump winning or not, this was showing that a vote really matters, despite what the media has been telling us. And you know, whether it's the New York Times or mainstream media, it seemed like there was this attitude. They wanted to tell the American people what was going to happen, what they wanted to happen. And this election wasn't about that. It was a big middle finger to the media.
Well, in Michigan overnight, finally coming in, 11,000 votes separates Donald Trump's victory in Michigan overnight to Hillary Clinton.
To 306 now electoral college votes. No one predicted that. I've looked at a bunch of maps before Tuesday saying here are some ways that he could win. No one predicted
No one did, except I think Rick Reitmuth may have predicted it, who is outside. I don't know if he did or not, but I'm going to give it to him. Rick, what do you got out there?
Hey, did you see my tweet on election night?
No.
I didn't, by the way.
No.
Yeah, that we get in so much trouble when our forecasts are wrong.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Seriously.
Everyone wants to blame you.
I know. We're not that wrong. Hey, happy birthday.
Thank you.
This is a big one.
50.
She said it, not me.
That's fine.
I didn't want to call it out, but you can't celebrate because your grandmother is celebrating 100.
100th birthday, November the 20th.
There you go. All right, lots of happy birthdays to go around.
Thank
150 years between the two of you.
That's right.
It's a lot of wisdom. There. All right, take a look at the weather map. Show you what's going on this morning. We have drought across so much of the southeast. We've talked about it across the west for the last couple of years. It's really built into the northeast and to the southeast this summer. And because of that, we've got those fires now in the southern Appalachians, and those are going to continue, unfortunately. We have a little bit of sprinkles today across parts of eastern Georgia and in towards South Carolina. That's not really going to help matters much. And after that, we dry out again. Next chance of rain probably Friday or Saturday this coming week. Meanwhile, we will see more activity across the west, especially in towards northern California and the Pacific Northwest. More rain and mountain snow that moves inland by Wednesday. All right. Happy birthday.
Thank you again.
Enjoy. All right.
Indeed. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. It's a big one.
It is.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
All right. Well, from the Attorney General who brought you Fast and Furious, the Fort Hood cover-up, and spying on Fox News, quite a lineup, a brand new plan to manipulate, well, the rule of law. What Eric Holder is working on now that might be unconstitutional, but let's be honest, that hasn't really stopped him before.
Plus, who will fill the economic post of the president-elect's cabinet, and what will it mean for his policy? Maria Bartiromo has some possible picks, and she's going to join us next.
All right. Well, President-elect Donald Trump is expected to appoint key members of his cabinet as soon as this week.
But who will fill his economic posts, and what will it mean for his policies?
For that, we turn to host of Sunday Morning Futures, Maria Bartiromo. Always good to have you here on the couch.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? Good to see you. All right, a lot of speculation going on this morning, but when it comes to the economy, and that is something that many people voted for Trump, Mr. Trump on, you're thinking Labor Secretary, Treasury Secretary. Who do you think is up for those?
Well, there are a lot of jobs to fill, obviously, and there's a lot of speculation going on in terms of who gets them. Steve Mnuchin, his head of the campaign in terms of funding, has been speculated for a long time in terms of getting the Treasury Secretary job. We'll see about that. It's very difficult to know. We can throw out all of these names, and it's all speculation. I think what you really want to do is go back to look at what his plans are. He wants to lower corporate taxes to 15%. He wants to roll back regulations, and I think there are a number of people who have been singing that song. Obviously, Congressman Barack Jr., Tom Barrack, as well as Jeb Hensarling have also been named in terms of Treasury Secretary. But there are a lot of people in terms of that overall job, lowering taxes and rolling back regulations that could fit in this role.
Jamie Dimon's name.
Well, I don't know about the Jamie Dimon
where did that come from?
Look,
who knows?
I think Jamie Dimon would be an excellent Treasury Secretary. Excellent Treasury Secretary. But I think they're very different. They have very different politics. I just don't. I wasn't believing it when I heard that rumor.
Some interesting names popping up for Commerce Secretary as well. What might we be looking at?
Well, obviously, Dan D'Amico, who was a business guy, he was a steel executive, and Lou Eisenberg, who was raising funds for Mr. Trump on the campaign trail, were two names that came to mind there. Look, I think that he's probably going to put a lot of business people in these roles to carry out the idea that you want to alleviate the business stress, like Obamacare, like this heavy regulatory environment, so that businesses will then turn around and create new jobs and hire workers. So all of the above. I mean, you know, it's hard for me to throw out names now when I know that we are going to be hearing imminently the answer either today or tomorrow. I will say this. Jared Kushner is one person who I've spoken about on the air and speculated perhaps being his chief of staff. That was really criticized by some people because it basically said, look, the White House is not a family business. You don't want someone who is such an important advisor to you in a position where you need that person to be able to navigate and see the blind spots, which will undoubtedly come up. That's why but he trusts Jared Kushner, and I think he's going to be one of his senior advisors. Remember Valerie Jarrett, what was her position? Senior advisor. She was actually the most important person.
Well, look at the Kennedys. Look at Bobby Kennedy.
Right.
Who is more of a trusted advisor to JFK than Bobby?
So I think Jared Kushner will be there. I just don't think he's going to get the title.
So who do you think could get Chief of Staff?
Well, I mean, I think it will either be Reince Priebus or Steve Bannon, which are the two names that are rumored. And the reason is because these two people, first of all, Steve Bannon has experience in Washington, but Reince Priebus really knows the playing field. If I had to bet, I would say it's probably going to be Reince Priebus.
What about Kellyanne Conway?
Kellyanne Conway did such a spectacular job. I'm in awe of that woman. I mean, she is going to get whatever job she wants to get.
Talk about stamina and loyalty.
Yes.
I mean, unbelievable. But she's got 4 children at home. That's a tough job. I'm sure she would be great at Chief of Staff,
Right.
but you got to think about your life as well.
I don't think she'll get the Chief of Staff, but she's going to be there. He's got his inner circle. We know that.
Talking about in awe of someone, you do mornings with Maria 3 hours every day of the week, and then you do Sunday Morning Futures. Who's on today with you?
Today we got a big show. Thank you so much, Pete. We have Newt Gingrich coming on, so I'm going to ask him, is he interested in any of these roles? And talk about really also what the priorities are for the Trump administration and how he's coming up with these ideas. We're talking with Congressman Jason Chaffetz. We want to find out where the investigation of Hillary Clinton goes now.
Will there be a pardon?
Yeah, will President Obama pardon her? So we'll talk about that. And also I want to get a level of continuity from Jason Chaffetz. How is he going to work with the Trump administration? What is he expecting from the House?
He's been critical.
Exactly, in terms of what they'll pass. And then Mohamed El-Arian, former head of PIMCO, senior advisor at Allianz. The best week for the stock market in 5 years. Mohamed's a big investor. He's going to tell us if it's going to continue.
We love your show, Maria.
We will be watching. Starts in 12 minutes. You better get upstairs. Thanks, Maria.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, as we were just talking about, should President Obama pardon Hillary Clinton? It's a very real question being raised at the White House. The legal implications when Katie Fang joins us next.
We all remember that heated exchange between now President-elect Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton during that second presidential debate. But in an interview with the Wall Street Journal, when asked about prosecuting Clinton, Trump said, quote, "It's not something I've given a lot of thought because I want to solve health care, jobs, border control, tax reform." But should President Obama issue a pardon and just make it all go away? Former prosecutor Katie Fang joins us now with her reaction to that question. That question was asked by the White House, the press corps, to Josh Earnest the other day. Should President Obama pardon Hillary Clinton? What do you think?
Well, Josh Earnest on Wednesday, he did a little bit of a stutter step there. He said, well, we really don't talk to the president about who he's thinking about pardoning, but please, you got to be sparing me that. That is not true whatsoever. You know they've talked about this. My answer to that question is, it is a toxic issue of I'm Obama. That is not what I am known for when I'm leaving a 2-term presidency. The presidential pardon is to be used sparingly. People remember Ford for pardoning Nixon for Watergate, and what happened to Ford in 1976? He lost re-election. If Obama has other political or otherwise ambitions in his future, it's going to be dangerous for him to touch a presidential pardon of Hillary Clinton.
You know, people, though, somehow they praised Gerald Ford for sort of falling on the sword and trying to heal the country, and he ended his political career as a result of that. People saying maybe President Obama should do that to heal the country, bring us together. What do you say to that?
Well, I think it's a great idea. It's a magnanimous gesture, but the reality is we do not know the full extent of the criminality of Hillary Clinton vis-a-vis the email server and vis-a-vis the Clinton Foundation. As we all know, in the months leading up to the presidential election, we didn't get full disclosure from DOJ or the FBI in terms of what happened. And so because of that, I don't know if Obama's even going to feel comfortable issuing the pardon. But something that's important for the viewers to know is even if Obama offers the pardon, Clinton can reject the presidential pardon. I mean, think about it. It's an admission of guilt on her end to be able to accept it.
So I didn't know that you had that option. That's fascinating. So if someone's going to pardon you, the President of the United States, you can say, I don't accept that pardon. Sorry.
That's true. And so the actual pardon itself, if it's rejected, means I'm not admitting guilt. And think about what Hillary Clinton has said this entire time. It was negligent. It was a mistake, but I didn't do anything wrong.
Rudy Giuliani on Fox and Friends this week saying President Obama should not pardon Hillary Clinton. Take a listen to him.
I don't think President Obama should pardon her. I think President Obama should leave it to the system we all believe in to determine Is she innocent or is she guilty?
His name has been floated as potential attorney general under a Trump administration. Is it possible we might see him appoint a special prosecutor under the Trump administration?
Absolutely. If Rudy Giuliani ends up being the Attorney General of the United States, Loretta Lynch is out of the AG's position, you better believe that there is going to be a special prosecutor that's going to be appointed to look into what's going on.
But what about Donald Trump's commentary in the Wall Street Journal? It said he sounded conciliatory, didn't he? It sounded as if, and after that phone call with Hillary Clinton, it didn't sound as if he wanted to go down that path. He wanted to focus on the American people.
You know, it's very distracting if there ends up being a full-blown prosecution of Hillary Clinton now that everything's been said and done. So would it be a better idea for the American public for Hillary Clinton to be pardoned? That remains to be seen. I mean, I think the problem that's confronting the American public is they still feel like they never got all of the full information and the answers that they needed to have to know exactly what happens with Hillary Clinton and the pay-to-play allegations.
Well, with a few seconds left, earlier a guest floated the idea that the reason President Obama may pardon her is because he's tied to it somehow. Of course, we don't have that information, but in these Freedom of Information Act requests, could there be a lead right to the White House?
Apparently, there's at least 18 emails between President Obama and Hillary Clinton, allegedly. So if that's the case, and he knew about this email server and he knew about classified information that perhaps could have been hosted somewhere else other than where it needed to be, that could implicate President Obama himself.
Wow. More intrigue, more fascination. Katie Fang, great to see you this morning. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
All right, more Fox and Friends in just 2 minutes. We'll be right back.